Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, out on my porch. It's time for the Daily Wine. If you're new here, hi. I watch all things true crime all day, and I need someplace to talk about them. So I thought if you don't have all day to watch true crime because there's so much crime and not enough time, just come here every day about 6:15, 6:30 on Eastern Standard Time, and I'll give you the rundown. I also used to be an academic, so I will tell you where you can go if you want to watch like the really long or longer shows, YouTube shows, or where you might go if you want to read. Like sometimes I review when Rolling Stone or People Magazine or uh, the what is it, the Daily Mail, when they have publications, sometimes, especially Rolling Stone, well worth reading some of their true crimes. So who knew, right? And the LA Times once in a while, but Rolling Stone really has a very good true crime section. So here's to Rolling Stone. So today is Tuesday, August 22nd, and I'm outside of my porch to do these lives because we have new kittens because I lost a pet, which is very sad. But a lot has been going on this summer. So I'm going to try to do these lives, catch you guys up. I'm going to try to keep up with everything that's going on. And right now I'm going to turn off my phone just in case, because we don't want any interruptions. And I'm going to try to do this, you guys, in 30 minutes each night, so it's not too long. You can join in on the conversation if you want. Oh, hi, Kate, my biggest fan, and you're in the parking lot. Nice to, way to come and support your mom. All right, you guys. So the biggest headline for today was in the Lisk case, especially if you saw the movie Lost Girls or you've really been into the case. This is Long Island serial killer Rex Human was uh, arrested for 3 of the 4 Gilgo Beach sex work victims, but there were 11 victims, including a small Asian man sex worker, they think, and a toddler. But 11 bodies were found all on the same side, which is why I think they're related, quite frankly. All on the same side of Ocean Parkway, which is the road that goes all the way out Long Island's the beach area, like Jones Beach, Gilgo Beach, Oak Beach. These are all but on the north side, the bay side, going headed. It's like a boulevard. So the south side near the ocean, if it goes, well, I think it goes east, I believe, and the other side goes west. So on the west side of traffic and on the bay side, so on the northern side where the traffic goes west, out on this little part of the beach peninsula on Long Island. You might have to Google it, map it, or go to Grizzly True Crime and Duty Ron have both driven. Duty Ron has driven out there. If you want to get like a real visual, he's got a Gilgo Beach drive from from Rex Human's house in Massapequa Park, driving out to Gilgo Beach, and then Gisela K on Grizzly True Crime actually she does map time, which is how I do research myself when I'm looking at these places because I want to see how it goes. And so I will Google map it and then go down to the, Google Earth, and you can like drive in the area. Anyway, they were all found on the one side of the road. When these 4 were the first ones discovered, it was right after Shanna Gilbert, which the movie Lost Girls focuses on her mom, and Shanna, who was a sex worker who disappeared from a call out in Oak Beach. Looking for Shanna, they found these other 4 bodies, and then they found more bodies and more bodies. Right after Shanna went missing, when the first bodies were found, about 9 months later, I believe, there was a man put in charge called James Burke. And James Burke is, in my opinion, just speculation, a freak. like the freakiest of the freaks, like sex parties. Supposedly, he allegedly set up his work at, he was the police commissioner of Suffolk County. So Nassau County and Suffolk counties are the two counties that these crimes took place in. Um, let me just tell you, this guy was in charge, and he didn't want sort of, he only put one investigator, even after they found these bodies. He kept one investigator on this. Um, and the investigator wasn't even full time. He discouraged the FBI. He said, "No, we don't need your help here." So it comes to find out later, after somebody breaks into one of his police vehicles, I believe at his house, and takes his bag. The perpetrator was later found, and he beats the crap out of the guy. What was in the bag? Sex tapes, maybe a snuff tape, I believe, sex toys. And he beats the suspect, and goes to jail for beating the suspect. Still receiving his, still, even in jail, I guess once you retire. So once he retired, I don't know if he retired and then the prosecution was finished, but he still gets his retirement, which is $147,000 a year. Good job if you can get it, right? Even after being convicted of a felony and corruption on the job. Anyways, he was arrested again this morning. Now, he's got this weird history with sex workers. He's and drugs and corruption on the job, and not wanting the FBI there. Missing a big tip, and like the big ogre type guy that when Amber Costello went missing, like, he seemed to obstruct the case. People said, well, maybe because he was involved with sex workers, he didn't want the FBI looking into him. Was he at all knowledgeable of what was going on in Oak Beach with the sex parties? Because they said he went to sex parties out in Oak Beach, and Shannon Gilbert disappeared from Oak Beach. Was he at the Brewer house? See, these are the things we don't know about. But so anyway, he was arrested this morning for what, you might ask? He was involved in a sting at the Veterans Memorial in what was the area called? Sorry, guys. I wrote it all down. I saw this on, it came across live when Melanie Little, an attorney, she has a YouTube channel, and I watched her whole live. It was very, it's very instructive because Melanie Little, highly recommend you go over to her channel. She is an attorney in Long Island, so she knows the laws. And if you've been following true crime, it's really, like, federally we have all these laws, but state to state, where most of the murders and true crime that we watch, there's little tweaks in how the federal laws are employed within a state, because there is some home rule, it's called, politically, specifically. Anyway, so, but she knows all about New York, and she's very instructive to listen to when it's anything talking about, like, Rex Heuermann when he was arrested and how they're arrested. She has police officers in her family, and she's a colleague of Duty Ron, a retired police officer. So, and he's out on Long Island. So when you get these people that are really there on the ground, boots on the ground, you know, like she had one of her live followers go out to this memorial in this park where this guy was in part of a sting. So it was a prostitution sex sting. They had then the police commissioner, the same one who talked about Rex Heuermann, was saying the old ex-chief was caught in this sting, and the people were asking questions. So what was it about? We heard it was about sex. Yes. At 10:15 this morning, Tuesday. Okay. 10:15, he's going to a park. I guess it was in the parking lot of this Vietnam Memorial, which is just disrespectful, but whatever. I guess the park, it used to be called Hillman Park, maybe Hill. And Duty Ron had called in and said his dad warned him way back in the day. It's known for male uh, meet and greets. Trying to be YouTube friendly here. And yeah, apparently he, it's not, they said it was a sting, and he approached an officer and solicited the officer for a activity that one should not be doing out in public. And I believe he was also caught with his pants down, like literally and figuratively. And then when the officer was like, okay, you're under arrest, he said, and I kid you not, do you know who I am? And you would think he wouldn't want to be known, because he was this old police officer who had gotten in trouble for corruption and having like it was a sexual element back then, and the fact he obstructed this big SA case. So anyways, he is, I don't know at this moment if he's bonded out, but he's been in jail all day today for that. And some of the speculation that was kind of interesting, and I half agree with it from my anything having to do with, I mean, I just watched true crime, but it does seem weird that Rex Human is in that same jail, has been talking to the same police people. Did he drop a dime? Was this guy involved in anything else? Did they sting him on purpose? Or is this just a coincidence that the same guy involved in the Lisk killings suddenly is now back getting in trouble again for something tangentially related? But anyways, go. I think Duty Ron is having on Melanie Little. They might be on probably at 7. I think he goes live. So after I'm done, look, that's a definite look up. So that was one of the big headlines. And the other sort of big headline is the woman who in Utah, Corey Richens. She was the one, you probably remember it. She wrote a book about grief for her children, and it turned out she is allegedly in trouble for poisoning her husband. It was the Moscow Mule laced with fentanyl. Yeah, put him to sleep for good. So she will not be getting the death penalty. So if you remember, in any of these cases, when they arrest people, they have, I believe it's 60 days, it might be 90 days. And then the police have to say, that the district attorney has to say, you are going to be charged with the death penalty or not. That's one of the things that has a timeline of when they have to do that. So Corey Richens of Utah, not going to be charged with that. Okay, so on to other, this is Tuesday. I thought I'd do like trial updates. Since I'm trying to only do 30 minutes a day, and we're already at almost 15 minutes. So speaking of people from Utah, there was a murder. I don't know what's going on with the birds, so I guess we're just going to have an episode of the birds out here. There was a murder that happened in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. Now, you might confuse this with another case because they're very similar. This one happened in 2022. A man, it's called the Microsoft murders. There has been another arrest. So I'm drinking Menage a Trois, which happens to be, I have to drink red wine because I have to. That sounds funny. But I am drinking red wine because I had a blood test that had high cholesterol, just a little bit. But did you know red wine can lower your cholesterol? So that was part of my impetus for the daily wine. So speaking of Menage a Trois, in the Microsoft murders, the man killed, it's called Microsoft murders because he was a executive at Microsoft. This man, Jared Brainerd, I believe I'm saying his name correctly. He was on his way in Jacksonville, Florida. He had dropped off his twins from his marriage that had broken up. She was remarried. He was remarried. He was dropping off his twins. He had his 2-year-old in the car with him. He was headed back home to his wife and a newborn when there was a tire in the road. He got out because the tire was like blocking his way home, and it was his traditional way home. I think it was like an on ramp where it was dark. Anyway, as soon as he got out, he was shot in the head. And his 2-year-old daughter saw everything from her car seat, but she's stuck in a car seat, screaming, crying, traumatized, obviously. Has to be there for a while until he is found. And then the police alert his wife at home with the newborn that her husband has been unalived at the side of the road, that her daughter's safe, but she's traumatized. And it's like a mystery who did it. So after a year, come to find out, the ex-wife's new husband rented to this man. He was hired, and there was a plan. He carried out the plan, the rentee of the new husband's rental. That makes sense. And if you go back, I don't know if I put it under Microsoft Murder, but I did talk about this when both Henry was the guy's name. I want to say Townsend, but I don't think that's correct. The actual guy was arrested like February, and then a couple months later, her new husband, who she may be separated from, but she, right before her new husband was arrested for her ex-husband's murder, she took off to Washington State from Florida, and her husband's name, I believe, is Mario. He must have flipped, and they were expecting her to be charged. So she's from the Stamp It Up. If you are like my age, if you're 40 or 50, and you've done scrapbooking when scrapbooking was big in the late 90s, early 2000s, you heard of Stamp It Up. Or if you're a teacher, you might have heard of Stamp It Up, because they're the stamp pads that you use to do things like cards or scrapbooking, or in teaching, the stamps that you put on someone's hand. Okay. Her family is very, very wealthy. Kind of, maybe. I don't know. She was spoiled brat. Did she think she could get rid of anything, do whatever she wanted? We don't know. And this is all alleged, right? But so again, menage a trois, because this was 3 people in a conspiracy. Jacksonville, Florida. Wife has the husband offed, allegedly, through a hitman. Why? Custody. The twins that he dropped off, she, I believe, wanted to move. She didn't want to share custody. And he had 2 kids with his new wife, and maybe she felt like, just go away. Anyways, if you are wondering, what does that remind me of? Well, there's another case in which we are having a court trial. If you've heard the name Adelson, Charlie Adelson is the brother of Wendy Adelson. Wendy Adelson was married to Daniel. No, I'm going to blank on his last name. It's not Martin. Adelson is her maiden name. She was married, it's on the tip of my tongue, to Daniel. There is a long-running podcast about the Adelson case. I'll talk more when that's actually in trial. But again, Jacksonville, again, a very rich young wife who doesn't want to share custody and gets somebody, allegedly, to off their husband so that they can have custody of their children. Really horrible case. So anyways, now we have a second case in Jacksonville, Florida, same situation, different players. But, we talk about people who are mama's boys or mama's girls, like people who are spoiled when they're kids. Sometimes they grow up and they remain spoiled. So anyways, Shanna Gardner, I believe her name is, she was arrested in Washington. She is resisting extradition to Florida. And somebody said, well, why is she resisting? What does this matter? And why did she run to Washington? Well, here's the deal. Washington is not a death penalty state, and the governor has to sign an extradition. First, you have to get it through the courts. Then the governor the governor of Florida has to say, we want it. The governor of Washington would have to okay it. And if the governor of Washington says, yeah, but Florida's a death penalty state, we don't believe in the death penalty, you can have her back, but only if you take the death penalty off not as a punishment. So that, I think, would be why she went to Washington, quite frankly, because her family was from Utah, like from Salt Lake City, where the big Stamp It Up company was started. I just think she ran to Washington because it was a state that is non-death penalty, and she's going to try not to get the death penalty. We shall see. So, anyways, she was arrested. She is in custody in Washington. They're keeping her in custody because it's a serious crime, but they're now the extradition process. But if I just, that's my 2 cents on why I think that happened. All right. The other big thing in trials, so I have about 10 minutes left, is the past, whatever, couple of weeks, they're talking about the Kohlberger pretrial hearings. So it is still set. He wants a speedy trial. It's still set for October 2nd. So a speedy trial means you are going to have your trial within 6 months of either probable cause through grand jury or probable cause through a preliminary hearing. Now, they had a preliminary hearing set, but if you remember in the Kohlberger case, this is the Moscow, Idaho 4, they instead went to grand jury. Now, there was a big, huge, complicated filing that everybody sort of talked about, but everybody sort of made fun of because they're like, we don't need a history lesson on English law. And why does it matter what was probable cause if it's through a grand jury or if it's probable cause through whatever? And there is something I think what they were trying to say, which is this. So the argument the defense was making was if you have a grand jury probable cause, if you find that it should be bound over for trial, it should be based on beyond a reasonable doubt. And people are like, no, this is a probable cause hearing, and grand juries are typically probable cause. Why would that be? Why are you even arguing this? This is stupid. Well, think about it like this. And think about you or your child or your husband are being accused of a crime. The grand jury does not have any defense there. There is only the DA, the district attorney, saying this is our evidence to a jury, a larger jury. Usually then it's not 12 people, it's more people than that. Why does that matter? Well, if you only have one side, then maybe the strength of the evidence to bind it over for court should be stronger because you don't even have a defense being presented. I'm wondering if that's what the real argument was made, even though they used a bunch of legalese. But I think the point of that whole thing may have been, and just follow me through here, is that in a grand jury, it is a higher standard of did they do it to go to trial because you don't have a defense giving you the other side. There is no defense that's allowed to present at a grand jury. So it would be a higher level of did they do it to go to trial versus in a hearing, it's like a little mini court. We saw that with Chad Daybell. You have the defense gets to put on its own, gets to question the witnesses. They get to present some stuff. It's different. So, like the preliminary hearing, if you remember for Barry Morphew, it went so badly, they withdrew and stopped everything until they got more evidence because they were it was being so close to not being considered enough evidence because things got thrown out because they didn't get it right, which I think was going to be the problem in the Kohlberger case, which is why they're fighting now about the DNA. So I just wanted to address that little bit about the grand jury because everybody's sort of laughing and saying it was so dumb. Why are they doing that? And I do think one of the reasons they said Idaho hardly ever uses the grand jury. I don't think Ann Taylor, the head defense attorney, who is a public attorney, I don't think she's, I think she's bright. And I think they are making a argument that I think is valid because otherwise they keep saying a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, meaning of course you're going to get an indictment because the defense doesn't get to have a defense. It does seem logical that maybe especially in a state like Idaho and Western states that maybe they were like, hey, that has to be a higher level. to get past the idea that there's no defense. Because if you know anything about the Western states, they're very much for individual rights and the strength of your right to all your constitutional rights. So I don't know. That has not been addressed yet, as far as I know. And this is Tuesday. I'm on East Coast time, and it is 6:45. So we shall see. The second big thing in the Kohlberger case, and I do think this is a big deal, is the genealogical investigation that was done. They call it IGG, investigative genetic genealogy, which means they have a DNA sample. That sample is uploaded and compared to all the samples in a database. And there are only a certain number of databases law enforcement can just use for comparison. Then when they get hits, if you're white, Northern European, you're more likely to get hits. And how do I know this? Well, Joel, who is the host on the Surviving the Survivor, STS, he was talking about genealogy in the case of Rachel Morin, because they found that DNA sample, and we also have video of the person that they're pretty sure did this. They have DNA, they uploaded it. They said this person committed another crime. They committed this crime here. So they're tying that all together. And he had on a DNA criminologist specialist, and she was the one who did the DNA in the Golden State Killer. She was the genealogist who did that case. And she says, it on average, it can take 16 to 18 weeks. Why? Because when they get into the database, they get like second or third cousins. Okay. They identify that cousin. Then they have to build out going into like ancestry.com, going into birth records, marriage records, divorce records, all the census records. If you've ever watched the show, there's like 3 of them where celebrities are in some of them. Other ones, there's PBS. I think it's called PBS Genealogy Roadshow, and it's on YouTube. They go through and look up people's genealogy, and they have the person there, right? So it's not DNA. But once you get a relative, basically, that's what they're doing. The other show is like something about your roots. That is what they're doing. And if you watch those shows, they go from place to place. Sometimes they have to physically travel to the location where their relatives were from and look into actual paper things. Salt Lake City, the Mormons have a huge genealogical research center. And, a lot of things are online now. But she said 16 to 18 weeks to do these trees. It's very time consuming and it's expensive because you're, paying somebody for their time. And I think the people in Kohlberger's case said they did it in 14 days. So did they actually do the work? And the thing is, if they just said, hey, yeah, sucks to be you, we did the work. How do you know? Here's the work. I mean, genealogical DNA work basically is we took this match, we matched it to these people, and from those people, we built out the tree by going to these resources. And it's like algebra. I did this, I did that. You show your work as you go down. And that's how we built out the tree. In Kohlberger's case, they don't want to show their work. And it is disconcerting. And we should all be disconcerted because we want to know that when we're accused of something, that everybody's following the rules and that we know what is the evidence against us and how did you get that evidence? What was the chain of command? Did you follow the rules? And people are saying it doesn't matter because the buccal swab, some people say buccal, but I think it's really buccal, meaning the cheek swab that they do. Well, that matched the knife sheath, which is very interesting. People have noticed this. They keep showing on any media the knife sheath with a knife, and then in little language, like little lettering, it'll say just a representative, just an exemplar, not the real knife, because they never found the knife. And so the knife sheath has DNA that was touch DNA, which means epithelial, which means it comes off on your hands. I can touch my computer. Anybody else can touch my computer, and they come off with my DNA, and then they can carry out my DNA and carry it to their car, carry it on their purse, carry it away with them. That doesn't mean I was there. So, because the DNA isn't direct DNA, and the STS thing that I watched last night, it was on Monday night, and it was about the Rachel Morin case, and he had the DNA specialist and a couple law enforcement people. I am telling you, you should watch it because it was really instructive about different types of DNA and the fact that they don't need as much as they used to, but they need a certain amount to do it. So when we all say, well, Koberger obviously did it because we know that his touch DNA matches the buccal swab, but touch DNA is transferable DNA. It's not direct. It's not his blood. Like, he didn't cut himself and bleed and it fell on the floor. It's not semen. It's not saliva. And it's not a hair. Even though hair can be transferable, right? But if you have hairs like on a bed, or like, let's say with the Lisk case with the body, that's more direct evidence, even though it's slightly transferable, but it's not like touch DNA, which is more transferable, which isn't usually a problem because usually they've had touch DNA like on a rock at the side of a riverbed where somebody was bludgeoned. Okay, well, not a lot of people are touching that rock. So the touch DNA would matter more, right? When it's something that, whatever. So, everybody needs to have a fair trial, and we all need to know that when law enforcement gets something, that they got it the right way and used it the right way. And also, I guess, I think it was on Peter Tragos. He was talking about the Koberger case, or was it somebody else? Somebody mentioned, and I did not hear this before, but apparently the Moscow police had a previous issue with some misuse, like sort of bias with evidence to nail somebody. So, I, I don't know. All I know is that if it was me, my kid, um, anybody, and I think we should all feel this way, is that you don't go, so what, it matched? Does it matter how they got it? Yes, because we have search and seizure. I mean, there's a whole amendment written about how the police aren't allowed to just come into your house and take whatever they want. Because that used to be a thing that happened in England. The crown could just come in and be like, no, you're off with your head. So it seems like, yeah, but of course he did it. I'm more of, I want a number of different things. There was a COVID thing talking about like masking and staying away and things like getting vaccines, and it was like a bunch of cheese slices with holes in it. But when you take like Swiss cheese and you put it together, if the holes were in different places, if you have enough of them, you could stop. They were talking about the virus or any bacteria, right? Any viral thing they were talking about. I think in a case, you want to see, like, not everything can be 100% for sure, but if you have a number of them lined up, right? So right now, in the like Rex Huber case, we've got a ton of his Google searches. His phones were all in the same areas as the phones of multiple victims. His hair and his wife's hair was on multiple victims. And God knows what they found at his house. What we know about Koberger, though, right now, is that, so in Elantra, the wrong year at first, they were looking for that car, and that he pinged around there, but there's not a lot of cellular towers. So like one ping, they're saying, no, we know he was at home. That one doesn't count. But these other ones, we know he was close to the house. But we don't have any evidence that he contacted them, that he knew them. I still wonder if he was getting heroin or drugs from somebody in that area, and, maybe it was jonesing and driving around freaking high as a kite. I don't know. All I know is that I want more. And so far, we haven't seen as much as we have in other cases. That is not to say he didn't do it. That's not to say I don't believe that. It's just to say, this is a death penalty case. We should expect more, including if they are trying to figure out who they are and they say they used this investigative genealogical uh, genetic tree data. They should show that. So I would expect, I don't know, I'm going also with Peter Tragos and Andrea Burkout. Those are two lawyers. Andrea Burkout is a lawyer in Idaho, and Peter Tragos is in Florida. But I would say, I don't know, that they should that should be provided to the defense. He's not getting that 37 days. Remember, there was a stay. There was like 34 days, 37 days given to him. Excuse me. Oh, I hate that. So he's not getting that so far. So it's October 2nd. Are we gonna go? Maybe. And if they go, this is one of those things why you don't want to be pushed into going to trial too fast. Like with the Barry Morphew thing. I think they thought Barry Morphew was packing up and leaving. So they pulled the trigger. I am telling you, on this case, they needed more evidence. They should have watched him more. They should have gotten more evidence, because I'm worried that there's not enough evidence. And I don't know if we really know. I mean, is he a weirdo? We don't know everything they have, right? But everything we've seen so far, people on the internet are like, oh, well, under another name, he contacted and was stalking the girls. Okay, none of that has come out. And one would think that would have been in the probable cause. That would be something they'd lead with, like, we know you stalked them. So I'm just wondering, I don't know, what do you think? So that is what I know about my theme for Tuesdays is trials. I'm trying to catch up on everything. And the headlines, James Burke with the List case, and no death penalty for the Utah, right? Utah mom, Corey Richens. We shall have a Moscow Mule. Oh, I'll talk about this tomorrow on Wednesday, maybe Wacky Wednesday, because this is a really wacky case. But also on Monday, there was a trial in the UK of a neonatal nurse, Lucy Letby. I think I saw it was a longer, I think it was the Australian 60 Minutes. Sometimes there's overseas things that pop up on my feed because I follow all true crime. And now it's also been picked up by, I think, Grizzly True Crime, Gisela K has done something, and then Hidden True Crime just did something. Lucy Letby was a NICU nurse. She now has been sentenced. She was found guilty. She's been sentenced to life without parole, which is as bad as it can get in the UK. It's pretty incredible what she was charged with, killing babies in the NICU. And the evidence, there have been other cases like this, and what they have to do is watch when the person, like when people die in the hospital, in like statistically more than, well, we'll get into it tomorrow. But I'm going to be talking about the Lucy Letby case tomorrow. But just know she is off the streets. It's a horrific case, but it's not without precedent. There have been other cases of nurses who have some call them mercy killings. This was not mercy killing. These babies weren't that ill. It seems like she wanted to be in the middle of a drama. And so she created the drama and has some sort of mental screw missing, that she didn't really empathize or connect. Like, this is a child, this is a baby. Instead, she was the nurse that would rush in and help the family with the baby's corpse and, take care of it for them and then console them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she needed to be needed. Anyways, kind of cuckoo for coconuts. Anyways, let me know what you think. So that is my time. We will have more daily wine, well, tomorrow for a new day. And let me know what cases you're watching. What do you want me to talk about? I would love to know. And I will look those up. And anyways, good night. Bye.